Hello, class. Welcome to our first lecture, which is on what is microbiology. And so let's jump right into it. And so by the end of today's lessons, you should be able to define the term microorganism, identify different types of microorganisms, explain how eukaryotic cells evolved, and identify different ways humans use microorganisms. And so if we start off with this big question, what is microbiology? It's the study of microbes or microorganisms. And usually, but not always, these are invisible to the naked eye and require the use of a microscope to see. And here on the right-hand side, we see two early microscope examples that would have been used to view some microorganisms for the first time. Microbes come in many types. That term encompasses many different things. Something that we will spend a lot of time on in this class are bacteria and archaea, which are prokaryotic microbes. And then we have our fungi, like this yeast here. We have the cysts of different helminths. We have protists, which can encompass many different things. Here we have a paramecium. We also have non-living entities such as prions and viruses. Prions are a type of infectious protein which cause misfolding of proteins, and here we see these big holes in this tissue here. These big white spots are where prions have caused misfolding, and you get these big kind of like lack of tissue. Then you have, of course, viruses, which are fairly well known. We have some microbes that are actually macroscopic, so you're able to see them with your naked eye. However, they have some portion of their life cycle which is generally microscopic. So we have protists. Here we have kelp, right? There are other macroscopic protists, but this one to me is very, interesting because of how big kelp can get. You have mushrooms, which are the fruiting bodies of fungi. And here we have the worm form of our helminths, which can also be in cyst form. And so as a general overview, we've got our two types of prokaryotes, our bacteria and archaea, which are both unicellular. We have our eukaryotes, which include our protists, fungi, and helminths. Now, protists and fungi can be unicellular or multicellular. Helminths generally come in multicellular form only. And then we have our non-cellular, non-living microbes like our viruses and our prions. Now, microbes are everywhere on the planet, and they are incredibly important. On our own bodies, we have approximately the same number of cells as we do microbial cells. So our own body cells are about equivalent to the number of microbes that live on and in us. In a teaspoon of soil, you might be able to find upwards of 1 billion microbial cells. That's in comparison to the approximately 8 billion people on Earth. So in a cup of soil, you could probably find more microbial cells than you could find people on Earth. Now, it's not all about numbers. Microbes are little, so there can be a lot of them, but is it important? Well, the reality is yes. Not only is it important that there are a lot of individual microbial cells, there are a lot of microbial species. There are estimated to be approximately 1 trillion species of microbes on Earth. In terms of cells, it's an incomprehensible number. 10 to the 30 microbial cells. That's a 1 with 30 zeros behind it. And approximately 10 to the 31 viral particles. That's a 1 with 31 zeros after it. To give you an example, A billion is a one with 9 zeros behind it. And so this is like a billion or more. I mean, gosh, I can't even comprehend the magnitude here. And now there are lots of cells, lots of species, but there's also lots of biomass, right? So when we look at this image here, we see that plants make up the vast majority of biomass on the planet, where you've got something like 450 gigatons of carbon that is plant derived or that is actually in plant matter. Now, but second in line is our microbes, right? So the microbes are going to include the archaea, the viruses, the bacteria, the protists, and the fungi. And that is a pretty significant number when you add it all up. It's about 45 times more than the amount of carbon found in animals, all animals, right? From insects to worms to birds to humans, right? So of humans, there's approximately, we make up about 0.06 gigatons of the Earth's biological carbon. And so when you compare that to bacteria, there is something in the realm of like 1,000 times more bacterial biomass than there is human biomass. So that's pretty impressive. Now that's spread across the whole world in every biome known to humans. Now, let's take a brief history of the evolution of microbial life. When we look at this, we're looking from the bottom up. All right, so Earth formed about 4.5 to 4.7, 4.9 billion years ago. Then water came onto Earth, a couple 100 million years after. And after that, about 3.9 to 3.5 billion years ago, we get the first microbial cells. Now, these first microbial cells would have been living in a harsh environment with no oxygen. They did require water to exist, and that's why you oftentimes hear about the importance of finding water on other planets or, you know, uh, other objects in space, because water is necessary for life as we're aware of it. Now, you get that first life. It was, probably not exactly the same as archaea or exactly the same as bacteria. That would be, it's our last universal common ancestor for all life on Earth, or LUCA, L-U-C-A. It might have been more closely resembling archaea because, as you'll learn a little bit in this class, archaea are especially well suited for living in harsh environments, compared to bacteria, which aren't always as well suited. Now, back then, this, again, like I said, it's going to be the bacteria and the archaea. We didn't get any eukaryotic cells until about 3 billion years later, or sorry, 2 billion years later, at about 1.9 billion years ago, we get the first eukaryotes. All right. So you see that photosynthesis occurred before we had eukaryotes. So that is for our photosynthetic prokaryotes, or our unicellular photosynthesizing organisms, right? Like cyanobacteria. Now, for the process of eukaryotes to exist, the fairly well accepted theory is called endosymbiosis. And from this, what is thought is that a archaea was able to phagocytize some sort of bacteria, probably like a purple bacteria, which became the mitochondria of the cells. And over time, you get the formation of these compartmentalized organelles within your eukaryotic cell. Now, those purple bacteria, which were phagocytized by an early archaean, you have this sub-branch that happened later where there was a second endosymbiotic event where there was phagocytosis of some sort of cyanobacterium, which led to the formation of plastids or chloroplasts. Now, this tree here is kind of demonstrating that for us, right? So we've got our LUCA, last universal common ancestor, which produces both our bacteria and our archaea. This little green section over here are our cyanobacteria. And then you've got your endosymbiosis event, which led to our LICA, or last eukaryotic common ancestor. And so this would be the ancestor of all eukaryotes on the planet. And it gives rise to all these different groups of eukaryotes. However, there was a second endosymbiotic event, which occurred with the phagocytosis of some sort of cyanobacteria, which gives the formation of your chloroplast. And now you give rise to all of your photosynthetic eukaryotes. And so our eukaryotes are going to include all multicellular organisms and several unicellular organisms, right? So we have amoeba and yeast and some other things like that. But it also includes all plants and animals. And so it's a pretty large group. Now, microbiology is important for several different fields. Of course, one that you all are probably familiar with is healthcare. So here in this example, we're talking about some sort of disease-causing microbe, right? So the example here is strep throat, which is caused by a species of the genus Streptococcus, which is a bacteria. You also have many other microbial diseases or bacterial diseases, as well as viral and helminthic diseases and even fungal diseases. Now, microbiology is also important for agriculture. So you can get nodules that form on roots that are able to that are basically formed by microbes. So one example would be with something called rhizobia, which are a type of nitrogen fixing organism. And so they're able to fix nitrogen from the atmosphere and provide that nitrogen to the plant. And in turn, the plant provides the bacteria with carbon. Now, in addition to this, we also have other associations between plants and microbes, such as arbuscular mycorrhizae, which can help many plants grow. There are often close relationships between these different types of arbuscular fungi and plant growth. We have industrial microbiology, where we can produce things that are industrially important. You can produce things like acetone, which is a type of solvent, not as commonly anymore, but in the past was a very common way of removing nail polish. You can also use these fermentation vats for production of biofuels or for production of alcohol and stuff like that. Incredibly important. Microbes are incredibly important for environmental science and ecology. They're part of every single known ecosystem where there is life. There are microbes. All right. As I was saying before, there are trillions of species and innumerable cells and a huge amount of biomass. And they're important for driving many of the biogeochemical cycles. They are important for decomposing organic materials. And that's why we don't walk around in a world full of leaves from last year's leaf falls, because our microbes break them down for us. And then they also do things like drive nitrogen cycling and carbon cycling and are in other elements as well. They are used extensively in food production, so you almost certainly have eaten some sort of food that is microbially produced. You've got bread, which is produced by yeast, as well as beer and wine. Then you've got lactic acid bacteria, which can produce cheese and yogurt, and in some cases, pickles. for what we call living pickles. Um, and then you have like aspergillus, which is a type of fungi which can be used to produce soy sauce. So don't forget to thank your microbes the next time you have one of these meals. And then, of course, we have microbial production of medications. So many antibiotics are microbially produced, such as penicillins and tetracyclines and streptomycin and others. We've got antifungals, antihelminthics, and immunosuppressants. I like to point out that ivermectin, which is sold under the name of ivermectin, is microbially produced, and it's an antihelminthic, which is primarily used for getting rid of worms in your livestock, although people did claim that it could prevent COVID or treat COVID during the pandemic. I would always rely on your doctor's informed opinion and not take a antihelminthic like this without medical approval. Then, of course, we have some other fun things like bioremediation. We've had some pretty terrible oil spills, specifically Deep Horizon a few years back, probably been probably over a decade now, but it released a ton of oil into the Gulf of Mexico, and they were able to find these microbial biofilms, right, which are just these we'll talk more about them later, but they're kind of accumulation of microbes that work together to break down the oil. Now, some of my own research here at Radford does some bioremediation work where I study how soil microbes actually break down plastic in the soil. And so that's an available opportunity if anyone is interested in doing some, independent research in my research lab. Now, so that is the end of our first lecture. You should be able to define the term microorganism, identify different types of microorganisms, explain how eukaryotic cells evolved, at least on a basic level, and identify different ways humans use microorganisms. Now, with that, we are all done here. There is an objective check in D2L that will see if you have mastered these 4 objectives. Be sure to get that done by the end of the week, and I will see you soon. Have a good day.